Welcome, everyone. We're excited to have you here today, mid-September, which is crazy. If you are new to this meeting, maybe just let us know in the chat section as well. We're just asking for everyone to introduce yourself, name, organization in the chat. Our big pressing question of the day is, do you prefer Teams or Zoom? Give everyone another minute. I just see some other folks filtering in.
My brother.
Angelica, how are you?
I'm doing good, and you?
Good. I miss you. I saw your picture the other day on Facebook and I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you guys in forever.
I know you've been busy.
Yeah.
That's good.
Crazy.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you. Okay, we will go ahead and get started. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We are doing introductions in the chat, name of the organization. Let us know if you are a newcomer to our group. And the big pressing question of the day is, do you prefer Zoom or Teams? So thank you again for joining us, and you are all very welcome, and we are so appreciative that you are here. So we're just going to go through a number of community updates, and then we will turn it over to Sarah, who will introduce our featured presenter today. So this is our agenda. We have community updates, and then that guest introduction presentation from Morelia Blanco Rincón, and then the Q&A. And then we follow up this meeting with the group updates. So it's open forum. If anyone has anything to share, to plug, to promote, challenges, we encourage you to share during this time as well. So with that, we just have a few things we wanted to update you on. Number one, I think most of you are aware, just overall, Multicultural Coalition has relocated offices. So we are now downtown in the heart of Menasha, a few blocks from the library. We're on First Street, and I'm hoping that in the next couple months, I don't want to push Gina over the edge, that maybe we'd be able to host an in-person here, which would be awesome. So we're loving our space. We have also a meeting room that is available for community use too. So just want to put that out there as well. Gina, can you go to, I think it's the next slide. So just wanted to give you an update in the health equity space. It has been extremely crazy and busy. Thank you to all of our partners who joined us last night for our joint event, hosting event with Pillars. It was amazing. I think we had just about 40 community partners at St. Matthew's Church yesterday afternoon, and welcomed an amazing group of people throughout the afternoon to learn more about services. Vaccinations were available on site as well. I mean, it was just amazing to look around the room and to see everybody gathered there today. So we are looking at how we can take that event into the next year as well. So a few other things from our end is 2 people from our team are going to undergo community health worker training, Gina and Maria from our end. So that kicks off next month. It is basically the work that we've been doing, but we're looking at how do we take it to the next level. So that training begins next month. In the meantime, for the last 2.5 weeks, our team underwent certified peer specialist training. So what this means is really a more of a community approach to helping in the space of mental health. So if you have undergone this training, or if you haven't, it is extremely tough. Number one, to get into this program. So we're super appreciative of some organizations, new Hmong professionals to help advocate in this way for us to get this training. So there are a number of us throughout the community, the culturally based organizations that have undergone the training. So we worked together with People of Progression and did, I forget how many hours it was like 46, 48 hours in the last 2.5 weeks, in addition to our regular work. So we're very happy to have undergone that process. And then we are looking at the certification exam in November. Then also in grant and health equity space, we did receive another grant from US Aging. So we are just getting started and kicking that off, really specifically focused on immunizations for our elderly persons of color. So stay tuned in that regard as we move forward with that body of work. Then, Gina, I think we're ready for the next slide. From the housing perspective, there's a number of things we have going on. So we continue to conduct outreach, and this means a lot of in-home visits. Sometimes, well, mostly with our refugee population. So we have been working with a number of families in the last couple of years. I think we're probably have about 30 active families that we're working with. And what this means is we work with them and we find out where the needs are and how can we advocate for urgent needs and then systemic needs and changes moving forward. And then that leads to our next bulleted item. So we kicked off our first urgent needs community meeting a few weeks ago. And that means we're looking at things that what are the consistent urgent needs like food security we run into over and over again when we're out working with families or talking with family. It's that urgent need of food. And I can't say it enough. It's what we're experiencing or hearing from the communities we serve is that reduced food share has really taken the families are taking a great hit from that. So a lot of times we go and we visit and we're working with families. We have coalition members down in Oshkosh, going to the pantries, doing grocery store visits just to provide some basics for them. So this urgent needs community meeting, we're working on how can we systematically build a system that looks at building out, perhaps it's like basic food boxes that are culturally based. And so at any given time, we have distribution points throughout our neighborhood. So making sure that everybody has food security. That's just one idea. And then how do we systematically work on providing food, and then so we can have a little bit of breathing space to then look at the housing issues. So the housing issues are many and great, from unsafe housing to access to housing. So we're working through and have private and public partners in that space as well. Let's see what this next. So workforce development, this is another bucket. So these are the 3 buckets that we're working in. But when we say we're working in, yes, we're on the ground, but we're looking at how do we drive systems change. So, and then building up that referral network within our culturally based organizations and other community resource advocacy, where and when and how needed. And then looking at the need for literacy, workplace literacy programs with specific employers. So those are just a few of the areas. Gina, I think your screen shifted. There you go. And I think you can go to the next slide too. This slide is blank because I think this is a good opportunity just to share some of our experiences as we have been going about our work. At a high level last week, we discovered that one of the families that we have been working with their kindergartner was not going to school and they couldn't figure out why. So that child had literally fallen through the cracks, in terms of, we think he was enrolled, but then there was some miscommunication, and this is 2 weeks into the school year and he was not going to school. So we quickly worked on advocacy in that regard and getting him connected to the school district. So we're working through that and figuring out how can we do better. Another family we're working with, we sat down and had a conversation with them and discovered they don't have running water in their apartment. So these are the types of issues. It's understanding how this came to be, and then how can we figure out to do better together. So just a couple of the stories. I think it's important to share what's going on in our community, and really looking at how can we do better to help with the families and making sure that nobody falls through the cracks. So I will stop there. Anybody have any quick questions for me before we turn it over to our speakers? Well, thank you, everybody. I think, thank you, Jenny. Yes, it is a lot of work. Oh, so Sarah, I will turn it over to you to introduce our speaker.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. And I just want to say I am a big fan of getting us together in your space, because I'm watching the names pop up on the screen. I'm thinking, I think I know fewer people than I know. So it'll be great to put faces to names in person. But yes, I am thrilled to have Morelia Blanco Rincón join us. She's working with the Wisconsin Regional Anti-Human Trafficking Program for the last 2 years. And prior to her work with UMOS, Latina Resource Center, she worked at UMOS National Farm Worker Jobs Program, where she served immigrant and seasonal farm workers through the Comprehensive Crisis Relief Program and the WIOA 167 program. These programs allowed Morelia to financially assist farm workers pursuing higher education and those looking for food, gas, and rental assistance. While Morelia was pursuing her bachelor's degree in criminal justice and criminology at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, she interned with the Legal Action of Wisconsin, the Farm Worker Project, which allowed her to visit H-2A housing and talk to workers to inform them of their rights as guest workers of Wisconsin. Morelia also has interned for the Milwaukee Justice Center and is located in Milwaukee County Courthouse, which is why we're doing this via Zoom today, to assist low-income individuals with filling out court documents such as divorce, name changes, child support modifications, and stipulations. Today, Morelia works as a lead anti-human trafficking victim advocate, where she advocates for victims of all forms of human trafficking in the state of Wisconsin. The Wisconsin Regional Anti-Human Trafficking Program, or WRAP, is a statewide program aimed at expanding the capacity of Wisconsin's communities to identify and protect domestic and foreign-born victims of all forms of human trafficking, as well as enhance the quality and quantity of services available to victims as well as survivors. WRAP provides training to service providers and communities, direct services to victims and survivors, and outreach. Today, we are going to be fortunate to hear about the federal definition of human trafficking, where it's happening, the methods of recruitment, tactics, indicators, and why victims stay. So thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to your presentation.
Someone asked if they go back to their country or if they stay in the United States. That's ultimately up to the victim and the survivor. If we're talking to them, we always ask, like, what do you want now? Like, what services can we offer you now? In some cases, the clients say, like, hey, I just want to stay here. The main question is, can I work after I left my situation? And if we're talking about an H-2A worker, then unfortunately they're not able to legally work in the United States after they have left their employer. But that's when we ask, like, hey, now you legally cannot work in the United States. You do have the option to stay here, talk to an immigration attorney, possibly get relief for this. So a human trafficking victim can obtain their T visa if they don't go back to their country. Sometimes they say, I'm tired of all of this. I was supposed to come here for 6 months. I just want to go back. I don't want to be here. And so then if they say that, we're able to partner up with the National Human Trafficking Hotline and get them a bus or an airplane ticket back to whatever home is. Sometimes home is Texas or somewhere in the United States. Sometimes home is a foreign country. So Mexico, South Africa, Honduras, Guatemala, whatever home is for them. Someone said, how do you ensure the safety of the person who exposes the person? How do you ensure the safety of the person who exposes the person who oh, okay. Whom they
It was double. I'm sorry. I did it twice. But the question really is, how can you ensure the safety of the person who exposed the person whom they've been trafficked by? So pretty much asking if someone reports the person to law enforcement, how are they for sure that they are safe? Because sometimes people will retaliate because they have exposed them. So that was
and that's a great question. And honestly, that is the most common question that a client is going to have for us, because they'll be like, okay, I'll say in the United States, I'm ready to report, but I come from a country that if I talk about my experience, about what happened to me, that person is going to find out and then they're going to retaliate against me. And that concern is very much real, right? We can't expect a foreign person to come into the United States and be like, oh, just forget about that because it's not going to happen here. Because at the end of the day, then they have told me, I am secure in the United States, but my family is not secure in our country. So how can we do all of that? When we're talking about security and we're talking about federal law enforcement and all those things, it's important to understand that once the client starts reporting what is happening to them, the case is 100% confidential and is not going to be reported to anybody. So if we're talking about the Department of Labor, Office of Inspector General, or Homeland Security, or any of those people, Department of Criminal Investigations, they legally cannot tell anybody who has reported or what investigation is starting. And so it's up to the advocates to keep prepping the clients like, hey, today these people are going to come in, they're going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, but this is what's going to happen out of this. Then when court comes, like, hey, now you're going to sit there and you might be face to face with the trafficker, but this is what we can do to help. And so a lot of those things don't really fall on the advocate, but also on the law enforcement to really be able to secure the safety for the clients. Clients have sat in front of law enforcement and said, I feel safe here in the United States now, thanks to my advocate, thanks to you and all the help that you're doing. But these people have ties back to my country. So if we're talking about like Mexico, these people have ties to Mexico. And if they know that I reported, then my family is in great danger. And so what law enforcement has said is, there are options for foreign people that become victims after a person has reported. And so that would just be the law enforcement's place to find out like what they can do and if they can bring people into the United States because of that as well. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. How likely is arrest or accountability for someone that is heading up the labor trafficking? So when we're talking about labor traffickers, the investigation is really long. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're very easily able to get somebody, right? But we recently had a case from 2016 where the trafficker got 90 days in jail, I believe. And it was a family. So the dad and the son got 90 days. The youngest son and the mom got supervision. And so the trafficker, said, we run a family business. We can't serve those 90 days together. So the judge said, okay, one of you has to serve it, and then you have 10 days after the person leaves for the other person to come in and serve it. So it kind of depends on, the investigation, the sentencing. The victim impact statements are literally essential as well, because that's the last time that the victim can say, this is how this case has affected me. And so we're able to work with victims to get those things as well, to get those things turned into the court as well. But sometimes the traffickers get a lot. Sometimes the traffickers don't, just get a slap in the wrist, to be honest with you. Is there any materials that can be printed or mailed my way so that I can use during outreach or have on hand? Yes, we recently developed a Know Your Rights card. It is in Spanish, and we're working on printing it in English. So these Know Your Rights card serve to anybody regardless of an immigration status. And in the front, it talks more about advocacy and how to know that you may be a victim of labor trafficking or exploitation. And then in the back, it has all of, I think, 7 rights, and they're federal rights. So it doesn't matter if you're undocumented, if you're on a visa, or if you're a U.S. citizen, those rights will apply to you. Just send me an email and I will send them to you.
Morelia, is your email in the chat, or can you make sure that's in the chat?
Yes.
And then if there's anything we can send as attachments to, as follow-up to the group, we will certainly be happy to do so.
I'm sorry that I talk a lot. My presentation was long, but every time I start talking about labor trafficking or like sex trafficking, I get very excited and I just want to talk forever. So I'm sorry.
That's called passion.
Yeah, I get that's true. But yeah, I just put in my email on the chat. So if you guys need anything, feel free to send me a message.
Thank you so much, Morelia. This is super helpful. And thank you everyone for asking your questions. Just want to wrap up. Any final thoughts for us? Morelia, you did mention one thing I just wanted to ask about. You mentioned there was like a hotline.
Yeah, so let me put that out there. So UMOS, or the Latino Resource Center, has a 24-hour hotline. Should you guys need to like reach an advocate after hours or anything like that? So that's the number for that. The National Human Trafficking Hotline, I am trying to pull it up right now.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And I realize we're going a little bit over. So if anyone needs to take off, we certainly understand. If anyone wants to drop something in the chat quick to promote or share with others, please feel free. And then we'll take note of those too, and we can share that as follow-up as well. Okay, thank you, Morelia. I see it in there, the 888-373-7888.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for presenting today. It was great. Great information. Super helpful.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for joining us today. If there's anything you want to drop in the chat, we certainly encourage you to, but we will see you. I believe we're looking at an in-person meeting. Gina, if I remember correctly, it is October 10th. Does that sound about right? I think Gina's trying to talk, but she's on mute.
Yes, sorry, I was going back and forth between the share and ending. Yes, the 10th of October is correct. And our guest presenter that day will be Brian Leon Tracy from Fox Valley Literacy. We are still in the process of gathering, finalizing the details for an in-person meeting at Fox Valley Tech. But we will make sure that the email that goes out has the information in that invitation.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Cool. Bye.